Nom, 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 nom. Okay, 10 o'clock on the west coast of the United States. 0500 GMT. It's Anything Can Happen Thursday. Formerly, what I used to call it? I used to call it, Free for All Thursday, but come on. I'm basically Sheldon Cooper in real life, so welcome to cBasAfterDark for the 23rd of April, 2015. I hereby am devoting this show to my two friends in the Trekkie chat room, Bill and Ape, Alien Ape Farm, who hates sugar in all its forms, so I'm eating the last two marshmallow peeps that I have. Actually, three. That was the first one. You caught me in mid-peep. And boy, do we have a lot of good stuff tonight. We're going to look at the Final Frontier file, which I call basically my summation of what not only space-related things, but Star Trek-related news, science fiction-related news, and we got a little bit of a mix of all of it. A paper came from an ASU student, Arizona State, where I went to college. What to do when an astronaut dies in space. An ethical analysis that's actually really interesting. Basically, the Astronaut Death Contingency Plan is what this is. What the Star Trek model-making team is up to. Remember the TV show Star Trek Enterprise? The original 60s Enterprise? Wooden dowels and a kind of a gray paint job, and kind of looked like a wooden dowel, wooden created thing with a paint job. Then they went to fast forward to 1979. They made the Star Trek motion picture feature film with a model that was glorious in many, many ways. The people that built that model have been up to some things. We'll check in with them, what they're up to lately. Also, what does Saturn's rings come from? Well, for one thing, geysers. We'll look at Saturn's rings and where they come from. They're actually being fed, and I think that's really interesting. Also, a lot of good news in the WTF file. Babysitting kidnapped kids. The naked nude burglar, which almost sounds like a good place to start, but maybe we'll finish there. When the IRS hangs up on you. The iceberg dweller. We'll meet the guy who's going to live inside of a hamster ball iceberg for a year. We'll look at a bee spill in the state of Washington. We will look at the Museum of Sex. We will look at assault by breast milk, as well as a celebrity. Which celebrity had her breast milk confiscated at an airport? All kinds of great stuff in the news. I want to start with one of the stories I brought a couple of weeks ago in Anything Can Happen Thursday was furries. I forget exactly what I said or why. No, I do remember what the furry story was because I still have the notation here. Some kid used a stuffed animal that he found in the garden section of a Walmart. He picks up the stuffed animal in the Walmart, the gardening section, takes it to the bedding section of the Walmart. He's a furry. If you know what that is, you already know where I'm going with this. If you don't, you have to know where fetishes come from. Fetishes come from usually puberty. If you have a furry fetish or like a lacy underwear fetish or a silky underwear fetish, very often that comes from, like somehow the teenage early days of masturbation kind of a thing. It's usually often very, very ingrained. Like the BDSM thing usually comes from people who are spanked or otherwise sort of restrained by people who they loved as children. All this is psychological. This is not really interesting. Anyway, furries are people who are somehow turned on by furry animals, not furry animals themselves. This is not bestiality, but this is furry stuffed animals or animal costumes, furry animal costumes. And this guy, I forget where, but he basically made love to this stuffed horse that he found in the Walmart gardening section after he took it to the Walmart bedding section, masturbated all over it, put it back, caught on camera, charged, the whole thing. There you have it. Well, today, I happened to catch a show. Now, I'm not big on Judge TV. I will tell you right now. You ever watch the Judge TV, though? Sometimes it's mildly interesting. I watch it for the same reason, very rarely, that I used to listen to the Dr. Laura Schlesinger program. The reason is if I want to feel better about my life, I look at the losers that are on shows like that. Now, Judge Maybelline, this program Justice with Judge Maybelline, I got the distinct sense right away that it was not the People's Court with Judge Wapner. You know what I'm saying? These are not actual litigants in a courtroom that's actually with a retired judge and it actually matters. At best, they are reenactments of actual cases with actors, and not very good actors, by the way. It was a furry case on Judge Maybelline's court. The guy has a furry party, which is basically an alcohol-fueled sex romp party in his dad's art gallery, was the story. I mean, already sounds fishy as hell, right? I didn't bother to even research if it's really happened or not. I believe the disclaimer at the end of the show said something about reenactments of actual cases. So it may have been there was an actual case where this happened, but the plaintiff was a furry. He is a cat. He dresses up as a cat for these parties. The defendants, we think, the guy was a fox, the girl was a sheep. Okay, whatever. They didn't have the costumes on. They just sort of described themselves to the judge. The judge asked some very pointed questions. But long and short of it, the guy had the furry party, the alcohol-fueled furry party for all these people in the furry community. The community. And he had it at his dad's art gallery, an art gallery, where presumably expensive art is on display. Yeah, a piece of art got damaged. Yeah, the people who were the defendants were the ones who damaged it while they were apparently full-on fucking in animal costumes. And yes, turns out that they were found guilty and forced to pay several $1,000s in restitution. And then, they have the sort of post-game after the judge has rendered her ruling and walked out of the courtroom. They kind of walk out of the courtroom themselves, and they each given, I noticed this. I've never watched Judge Maybelline before. They're each given one sentence. They can say one thing to each other. I think the person who wins goes first. No, the person who wins goes last. The person who loses goes first. And what the person who loses, the two defendants, the fox guy and the sheep girl, were like, we got pushed into the painting. It was, other party goers who pushed us while we were having sex in our animal costumes, and that was they're the ones who should pay. And the judge was like, I mean, it's a big, beautiful black lady, so she's like, well, I guess you need to get Kenneth the Turtle to pay you for it, whatever. They allege this guy, Kenneth the Turtle, who was not present, was the one who pushed them into the art, damaged the art, should have to pay. Well, the judge, Kenneth the Turtle, wasn't there, and he wasn't the one being sued. It was these two people who actually did the painting damage. And so the little post game is my favorite part, because the guy and the girl were like, they're incredulous, sad look, not very good actors if they were actors. We got pushed into the painting and now we have to pay. What's up with that? And then the fucking cat guy, who was the plaintiff, looks at them and goes, do your monkey business where your monkey business is supposed to be done. So we got the animal, stupid puns. And it's just like, God. Occasionally, I dip into midday shitty television just to make sure I have a sense for where the boundary is. And boy, did I, that was an eye-opener today. I'm like, holy shit. Maybe I should watch Judge Maybelline more often. The executive producer I noticed was Byron Allen, who is a black entertainer for many, many years. Used to be the Byron Allen Show. I believe he was maybe even a comedian and a record producer and stuff. So, I mean, it may be this is strictly for entertainment purposes. If it was, it entertained me briefly. And boy, did I feel dirty afterward and have to change the channel. All right. Enough about furry people. Those people, I mean, what do I always say about fetishes? They're like religions. Yours seems not just 100% natural to you, but just logical beyond logical. If you have a fetish or a religion, yours seems normal and natural to you. Everyone else's is really fucking weird. And to me, I mean, I don't have a problem with people who dress up in women's clothing, or people who like silky, lacy underwear, or the people who like bondage to a certain degree, or the people who like leather, or the people who, all of these people who have their fetishes are totally okay with me. I'm very much a, free to be you and me kind of a thing. You do your thing, keep the door locked, and I don't have to find out about it. The furry people, I find weird, and not in a good way. It's creepy ass weird when you're dressing up as a fox to have sex with a girl who is dressed up like a sheep in the middle of an art gallery in front of other people, drunk as fuck. I mean, there's nothing about that community at all that I find even remotely appealing. I get creeped out just describing it to you without a single photo, or all I had was a verbal description from the Judge Maybelline show. Whew, that was an interesting start to the show. Let's get to space, the final frontier. And let's look at the final frontier. Now, should we start with the other thing? Let's start with the B spill. I think I like the B spill. I'm a big fan of a couple of kinds of news stories. My two favorite news stories, number two, is big food, record-breaking food. Anytime there is a food record that is broken, usually you won't see that on this show. Usually you'll see those stories on the Saturday show with me and my partner Sarah in Oregon, the fast food, junk food extravaganza. So big record-breaking food of any kind I like. The kind I like that is the number one above that is any kind of large food spill. Any kind of 18-wheeler truck that has overturned, spilling bananas all over the freeway. Any kind of large delivery truck going to Safeway that spills 18,000 tons of frozen foods or, you know, live turkey, whatever it may be. Any kind of large food spill is my single favorite kind of news story. This isn't quite that, but we're approaching that. It's almost that good. We'll switch over to the folks at Slate here, and we will let them show you what I'm describing to you. It was not a food spill, but a bee spill. Yes, a gigantic number of bees spilled all over the roadway. Switching over to it here so you can see what I'm seeing, because in the state of Washington, that's where this happened. A semi-truck crashed, spilling, as the folks at Slate describe, a spectacular number of bees across the highway. Thank you for Slate journalism. You know, if I had any money and a job, I totally would support Slate. They really do a spectacular job. The folks at Cairo 7 have a lovely image here. You can see the folks in their beekeeper outfits. You can see the boxes. I believe those are those special boxes that are actually bee hives. Bees on the loose. The driver of the truck was not hurt. A truly spectacular number of bees spilled across I-5 there. Thank you, Best Foods. Each box holds about 5,000 bees, according to Cairo 7. This is ominous. Many boxes of bees remained on the road after sunrise, and the bees began to swarm and become more active. In daylight, that's what it looked like. Very often, these sort of overturned truck things happen in the early morning hours, right as you're headed into drive time. My time as a reporter, especially a traffic reporter, I did a lot of this sort of thing. Never bees, though. Millions of bees still on the loose along northbound I-5 in Linwood, and members of the Cairo 7 news crew were stung numerous times. That's not funny. Certainly not if you're allergic, but I did enjoy the story of the bee spill. I was kind of hoping for a better picture than that. I don't know what we're going to see other than beehives and guys in beekeeper outfits. Just type in bee spill really fast into Google and see what we get. I mean, there might be actually, there's a Gizmodo article. Gizmodo is usually pretty solid. Let's check that out real fast. I promise we'll get to better stuff than this, but I just want to see. I'm a sucker for these large spills, really of any kind, but especially if no, it's not a honey spill. If it were a honey spill, that would be right in my wheelhouse. 7 days ago, truck spill from hell dumps millions of angry bees onto the highway. Again, they're all just quoting Cairo 7. Truck blew a tire, lost control. Boxes containing 448 honeycombs. I think they said each honeycomb, 5,000 bees. So there you have it. Many beekeepers on scene trying to deal with the bees. I like this author. Ugh, where in the hell did they get those beekeeper uniforms? Do they just have those around? Also, interstate bee commerce. I'd never considered it. Printer ink, cows, cash. Oh, well, we have links here thanks to Gizmodo. Let's just go ahead and click on these really briefly. Printer ink, the most beautiful truck crash ever. There's the printer ink spill. This from the year 2011. I remember this one. Massachusetts. 8,000 gallons of printer ink spilled on an interstate, resulting in what was the most colorful car crash in history. And there it is from the air. Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection said 16,000 pounds of red, blue, and yellow ink cartridges from an Indianapolis-based printing company were involved. There's no evidence the yellow ink was released. Although after looking at the photographs, and this person doesn't know how to spell relevant, he does think yellow did get spilled. Maybe that's just how the side of the truck is painted. I don't know. This person asked the question, is the driver responsible for what must be $30 gazillion in ink cartridges? Those aren't really expensive. Okay, let's look at the second one. Cows. I have reported on cow spills. Trucks containing large numbers of cows spilling into the roadway. Is there a video? Oh, this was in Russia. I do not remember this one, and this does not look like this video is going to work. Yeah, the YouTube account associated with that video is terminated, but just another truck crashing in an unnamed town in Russia until the truck cargo turns out to be a small herd of cows, bovines spilling and scattered across the road. I mean, that might be actually be kind of sad. I feel bad for the animals in the case like that, because those are live animals, and goddamn, that would be scary, you know? I mean, I know they're cows. I know we eat cows. I'm not like a vegetarian, but here's the last one. Of course, perhaps the only thing that can top food spills is money. Of course, the only thing is if you go and try to pick up the money, as seen in this GIF image, yeah, the police are coming after you. In South China, dozens of Hong Kong motorists rushed to grab loads of yen, I guess it would be, after the armored truck doors opened by accident on Christmas Eve, spilling about 4.5 million US dollars in $500 Hong Kong notes, each one worth about $65. Oh, let's look at this. I love the video. Let's look at the video here. From the folks at Sployd, South China Morning Post. Check it out. Oh, money all over the road. People are just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, yeah, they go looking for it. It's not like these people ever get away with it. I mean, maybe some people get away with some of it, but yeah, they go after them. They get arrested. And of course, news coverage always ends up filming people doing this. So yeah, but I mean, money spills. Oh God, are you kidding me? Absolute gold. All right. So yeah, the bee spill 7 days ago in the state of Washington. Just kind of ugliness, not what you want to see happen, is it? All right, let's look at something else to talk about here. The Museum of Sex. Hey, you guys have been patient with me. You've hung around this long. Let's look at the Museum of Sex, brought to us by the folks at the Huffington Post. New York's Museum of Sex mounts very explicit exhibits, not safe for work. So there we have, what are those, bucks or deer? Or, I mean, those, is that, looks like a bisexual trio there. MoSex is what it's called for short, and it's been open in New York for 13 years, enlightening, educating, and titillating patrons with explicit exhibits. Pixable.com has the ins and outs of the place. Here's their slideshow. They're not safe for work slideshow. Please do not touch, lick, stroke, or mount the exhibits. Here's the Tunnel of Love. Here's an erotic themed carnival game. Okay. Oh, I can see the dicks there, the little dicks on sticks that I guess if you roll the ball and you get it, I don't know. That looks like it could be a Price is Right game. The Bouncy Castle of Boobs. There we go. Here is an erotic rock wall. Erotic it is. I'm trying not to sort of I'm trying to go a little fast here just so that we don't have to. There's a female urinal. Who knew? I'm trying not to get shut down for being explicit. Hopefully this is not so explicit that it'll get me shut down. It's not like I'm showing actual sex. I don't know what that is, but it scares the hell out of me. A print featuring Disney characters engaged in nasty things. All this on Huffington Post on the day of my birth, actually, 4/14/2015. Just type in Huffington Post Museum of Sex. We'll finish there. Oh, there's a pygmy chimp offering sex for sugarcane. The rather stylized penile display there. And of course, my favorite part is, let me just scroll past the penis. The do not touch right here. That's pretty nice. A dress made out of what? That dress is made out of condoms, according to the caption. Display of robots having sex. Hey, robots need loving too. Condoms for sale, I guess, at MoSex in the gift shop there. So there you have that. Okay, well, there's the weird news for the week on the good old Huffington Post. Let us continue. Let's look at the iceberg dweller. I think I probably apologize every time I bring up something that comes from the website Bro Bible. The truth is the Bro Bible has a pretty good repository of interesting stories that many times I find nowhere else. This is the man who will live inside a hamster ball that is floating on an iceberg, and he'll live there for a year. Alex Bellini, brought to you by Belch Beer. Alex Bellini will soon embark on the journey of his life. God, I hate those ads that make the website move. He's commissioned an aeronautical engineering company to build him a survival capsule, basically a hamster ball. He'll live inside the biodome for an entire year as he floats atop an iceberg from Greenland out into the northern Atlantic. It'll only come to an end when the iceberg he's traveling on breaks up and sinks, and Alex is able to experience the sensation of complete lack of control. That, or when he's eaten by polar bears or killer whales. This person on a Bro Bible says they're actually slightly jealous he has time to go sit in a hamster ball on an iceberg just to see what happens. Is this actually video? Can we see this? Adrift? Is this going to be like the movie? Some documentary or something? I'm not necessarily interested in watching the whole thing, but there's what looks like an iceberg. And what looks like a guy. Alex Bellini. Okay, that's got to be the guy. Born a couple of years after me. So he's younger than I am.
These are the years of record.
These are the years of record?
Between 1999 and 2002, Greenland has lost 36 billion of tons of ice, more than the previous years.
Okay, I'm just going to reflect right now on the fact that I certainly am no spring chicken. I certainly don't think of myself as attractive in any way. I think the people who do think of themselves as attractive are irritating and annoying. At least I feel like I'm older than that guy, but I don't look as old as that guy. That guy looks like he has had a hard life. I'm sorry let's just switch back to it. I mean, I shouldn't be thinking about that sort of thing, but let's just go back and look at him.
Trend will remain steady over the next 100 years. The sea level will rise from this point to this point, 30 centimeters higher. An increase of a meter will devastate an entire nation and continents, and all the people who live near the sea will suffer serious damage.
Can we get him some Noxzema or something?
2010 was the hottest year for Greenland, 3 degrees higher than the average of the last 100 years. In the summer of 2010, were 50 days more than the average, in which the ice suffered of melting. The ice has a reflective power. When the sun rays hits the ice reflects back to the atmosphere. The more the sun insists on the surface of the ice, and the more the ice tends to lose its ability of refraction. This compromises the stability of the ice, and the ice starts to melt. Not only this increased the sea level,
another pause just to reflect. I'm not going to switch it to me or anything, but I do like the sort of holo. I mean, I realize it's just digitally inserted, but this holo technology here, where he's sort of holding his hands apart and they kind of insert it, I gotta say, that's some Star Wars shit. I wish I had that.
Not only this.
Yes. Can we skip ahead a little bit? We know the ice is going to melt.
12 months, witnessing his last phase of life, the one that forces it to turn back to water. I will live into a cable module, very similar to the lunar module.
He's going to live in a lunar module.
This module will ensure my survival. Inside, there will be my supplies and all my equipment to document the adventure.
I love this translator's accent. I wish I could learn to talk like this.
Where I feel the urge to act, to do something. I rode across 2 oceans. I crossed the frozen vastness of Alaska.
Yeah.
The Sahara Desert.
I might look prettier than this guy, but he's done a shitload more physical stuff than me, so I guess he...
I dream one day to reach the South Pole and the North Pole, and I wish my daughters and my daughters' daughters can have the same possibility.
He's already got daughters with daughters, or is that just theoretical?
For me, now it's time to act.
It's time to act.
On the iceberg, I will be generally alone, but for short periods of time, I will be living with writers, bloggers, environmentalists, with whom I dream to form a global and virtual form of global warming. That this will become the era of responsibility, where each of us can take up his portion of responsibility to try to reverse this trend.
Does he have like an Indiegogo account or something? Like,
and it will be the journey of the human race on this planet. Adrift.
Coming soon to a documentary channel. Probably Bill the Cat will have this on his channel, I imagine, near you. Okay, well, let's try and finish the article briefly. Oh, there's a look at his, is that his, like, that doesn't, I mean, the thing he sort of drew in his hands looked like an egg. That's more of a Death Star sphere looking thing. 2 doors, 4 windows, 4 hoisting and tether points, 8 vents, perforated aluminum floor, below floor storage. Strong enough to survive a storm at sea or getting crushed between 2 icebergs. It's like the, you remember the egg from the TNG episode, The Next Generation, where they had Dr. Kelso from Scrubs on the premiere episode of season 3 of Next Generation. The egg, right? Dr. Stubbs. And kind of looks like that to me. Anyway. So, okay, a guy's going to be on an iceberg for a year. Are you jealous of that? I don't think I am. I am, as the author said, he wasn't jealous of the guy. What he's jealous of is that this guy has that sort of time, that sort of free time and ability to do this. And again, I sort of respect his, what appear to be his, green motivations for it, right? His trying to call attention to the climate change thing. I respect that and I appreciate that. And that's interesting and important, I feel like. I don't think I could do it. Here's something. We just got done with tax day a little bit ago. This will make you smile. What happens when the IRS hangs up on you? Most people probably wish they would, right? Well, this is actually people who are calling the IRS who get hung up on, and it's not a small number. Wait until you see the number of people hung up on by the IRS while they're in queue. It was a courtesy. Yes, okay. The IRS was able to answer 7 out of every 10 calls last season, but today it answers 4 out of every 10 calls. Here we go. About 6.8 million callers to the Internal Revenue Service have experienced a courtesy disconnect, where the call is automatically ended before it begins because there are already too many people attempting to contact the agency. Our staffing levels are insufficient to deliver on our mission. And then they're saying also enforcement suffers because Congress keeps shrinking the IRS's funds. I have everybody I know going like this with the world's smallest violin playing "On My Heart Cries for You" for the Internal Revenue Service. All right, let's turn to a pretty serious story. It's wild though because it's a babysitter just doing his or her job. I believe it's a he. Yes, he's watching a 2-year-old boy. Babysitter watching a 2-year-old boy. This is not a child molestation case, but it is turning out to be a kidnapping case. Holy fucking shit. If you are watching the news while you're babysitting and then you see the kid you're babysitting on the news, yeah, holy fucking shit moment for sure. Babysitter sees Amber Alert, tells the police he's watching the abducted 2-year-old boy. Renton, Washington. A couple in Washington State were surprised to discover the child they were babysitting had been abducted, and an Amber Alert was issued seeking the toddler's return. The date on this, April 16th, 2015, updated April 19th. So again, in the past week, authorities issued the alert last Tuesday night after the 2-year-old boy was taken from Des Moines, Iowa. Good Lord God, really? The guy says he and his wife have been asked to watch the child by his sister and didn't learn about the alert until Wednesday morning. Trong called police who retrieved the child. Authorities say he told them his sister asked them to watch the child overnight, explaining it was her boyfriend's son. Police have arrested that sister in connection with the kidnapping. They say she and the child's paternal grandmother went to the boy's home Tuesday and incapacitated the mother with a taser. The grandmother was questioned by authorities. So yeah, imagine being, is this an actual news story we can watch? I don't want any more ads to pop up.
Easter week, beat the clock.
Son of a bitch. That's exactly what I wanted to avoid. But anyway, it's a story that's pretty, I think, that certainly belongs in what I call the WTF file, those stories that are like, what the fuck? What happened there? How did that happen? Why did that happen? A story about spider babies. I think I'll skip that because I don't think anybody needs to see it. I'm still getting the willies just thinking about it. Essentially, a guy kills a spider and millions of babies come out. Ugh, right? Okay, here we go. Naked burglar time, my friends. By the way, it's halfway through the show. Call me 310-776-5869. Tweet me at Sebastian Kuntz. The addresses are on your... Man, that did not go through. Oh, wait, here, let's just try this. Yeah. Let's switch over to it and see if I'm able to bring up the story. NBCLosAngeles.com. Dad fights off naked burglar. I was scared for my daughters. Again, WTF and no fucking shit. Yeah, I'd be scared for my daughters too. We may be able to watch a video here. I'll hit pause briefly just so I can play it. Let's read it briefly. John Davalos came face to face with a naked burglar in his Spring Valley apartment. I think that's also Southern California. Hey, bro, I just want to take a shower, the stranger said as he stood in the bathroom. He knew he had to stay calm to keep his wife and 2 daughters asleep in the next room, safe. In the bazaar, I said okay and closed the door. I went, grabbed my cellular, dialed 911, grabbed a knife, and tried to tell him stay right there. And suddenly the intruder lunges for the knife. Davalos punched him. The 2 started wrestling. Then the brother-in-law came in the bathroom and helped him subdue the intruder. He was so strong. He was a strong guy. Let's go ahead and watch the story. This is NBC 7. NBC 7 would make it like more south than LA, though. That's like San Diego. Yeah, NBC San Diego.
His daughters just feet away. NBC 7's Candace Wynn is at the home on Hamishaw Road. She has more on what that father did. Candace?
And Catherine, there are so many strange elements of the story, including how the suspect got in. Sheriff's detectives tell me that Michael Delias yanked out that AC unit right there and then crawled into the home. Inside was a father of 2 who wasn't going to let anything happen to his children.
Holy shit, he pulled out the air conditioner? Okay, that freaks me out because that's something that can happen more or less any place you got an air conditioner in the wall.
John Davalos says it was late and his wife had just stepped outside to talk to a friend.
I was sleeping with my daughter and I heard a noise.
He thought it was his wife.
I looked by the hall right there and I saw somebody running, but running kind of fast.
It wasn't.
I saw him going to the bathroom. And what I did is I tried to open the bathroom, and this guy just staring at me saying, hey, bro, I just want to take a shower.
Davalos says his 2 daughters were sleeping in the other room. Even if this strange man just wanted to take a shower, he couldn't take any chances.
I went, grabbed my cellular, dialed 911, grabbed a knife.
Investigators later learned that the suspect, 34-year-old Michael Delias, had gotten into the home by removing the family's air conditioning unit and crawling through the space.
Son of a bitch.
Apparently, he really wanted to take a shower. When Davalos saw him, he was half naked.
Suddenly he started acting weird and tried to fight me. I was punching him. Oh, my daughters, my family. That was the first.
Davalos says he had a knife in one hand, controlling the suspect, and his cell phone in the other, calling for help. Deputies arrived, they arrested Delias and charged him with residential burglary. This father has 3 words for the suspect who's now behind bars.
Don't be stupid.
Well, the family is all right.
Everybody's laughing.
Of course, secured this AC unit. Now, sheriff's detectives tell me they're not sure if the suspect had drugs in his system, but the father here tells me to him it was pretty clear he did.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that was, again, I kind of, how you see a headline, naked burglar, ha, ha, ha. It seemed funny. That was not funny. When you watch that, that's much, much more scary than it is funny. And, oh, God. I'm interested if there's any kind of update, like Michael Delias. I want to see his picture. I don't want to see him naked. I don't know. I guess he might not be bad looking, but again, I have no idea. Probably somebody who sneaks in is going to be homeless. Homeless people are almost never that good looking. Michael Delias naked. Let's do a search for that and just see if we can get a picture. Images. Hopefully, all we get is pictures of the guy who subdued the naked guy. We have no pictures of the actual guy. So that's, I guess, mildly unfortunate, but probably not that unfortunate. Like, it's probably best. I do want to see this guy, because a guy that'll do that probably could, certainly probably has a history and could potentially do it again. cBas After Dark, Anything Can Happen Thursday. Feel free to call 310-776-Coons. Feel free to tweet or text me as well. Let's switch to the Final Frontier file. I really like the Final Frontier file, and I do it so rarely. And I want to start with Saturn's rings, because Saturn's rings, everybody knows Saturn is the planet with rings, right? Well, Where do they come from? And what makes them? I mean, I think we all know rings of planets are made of dust and ice. And for the most part, that's kind of like what make up a comet in smaller form. Well, let's switch to this website, cyclops.org. It's the Cassini Imaging Central Laboratory for Operations. So the Cassini spacecraft is the one that went out there. And let's look at their website, because this is pretty interesting stuff. This looks, something about this website makes me feel like it's a little bit less, you know, it's the black on white, or the white on black instead of the black on white. Here we go. Long, sinuous, tendril-like structures seen in the vicinity of Saturn's icy moon Enceladus originate directly from geysers erupting from its surface. So the geysers from a moon are contributing, shooting stuff up into the air, and then they kind of end up joining the rings of Saturn. Astronomical Journal is the name of the journal where the study is published, along with additional insights. Images and graphics are supposedly available. Let's open that in a new tab and see what we get. Oh, okay, there we go. Let's look at the tendril producing guy. Can we not just see a picture? Does it have to be so goddamn complicated? I guess it does. There's some images. Here we go. All right, hopefully you're able to see what I'm seeing. Doesn't look like you are, though, so let me again switch to the screen where this is happening. Here we go. Simulations of the tendril. So even these are simulations, but you can kind of see that's still an interesting image. The image of the Cassini here, and then the computer simulation here. So this is a real image on the left-hand side, the A image, and then the B image is a kind of a computer simulation. But I'm sorry, that's pretty badass, right? Like finding out that the moons that shoot geysers and, you know, volcanic shit, I suppose. I mean, geysers are supposedly not volcanoes. The geysers are like ice and water. So, but I mean, if they're spewing stuff up into the air, that's still pretty badass. Back to this website, maybe we can see the earliest tendrils. These are all from, again, the day of my birth, April the 14th. And again, here's another image. I don't know if... I don't know how clear it will be, but let's try and get a look at these earliest tendrils. Oh, okay, you can sort of see there. Yeah, that's cool. Badass shit. Especially if you're a big fan of Voyager. I am not a big fan of Star Trek Voyager, but I do know that that's the one Star Trek series where you can kind of go through, you actually travel through a ring of a planet, and you kind of see it in, you know, animated high definition. I never thought the opening sequence of Voyager was all that great, because I feel like it was kind of over the top and like, wait, and the design of the ship is fucking bogus. Gene Roddenberry's garden trowel. But essentially it's, you know, it's the one place where you kind of go through and get to see it travel. Here's the Star Trek story I've been waiting to bring to you for a while, and let's just do it, because the model team, the people who built the Enterprise in Star Trek I, the motion picture, are reportedly up to some new things, and let's see what they're up to. People.com, that would make it People Magazine, yes? And the original prop team behind Star Trek's Enterprise is reuniting to build a new version. Looks like we're going to have an ad here, so I'm just going to kill it if I can. There we go. And I mean, there is the image we all know, the Enterprise hanging in its dry dock from Star Trek I, the motion picture. But here's the filmmakers behind the Panavision camera, and these guys with beards underneath. And I mean, if you look very closely, I'm going to try and actually zoom in a bit, if I can. What I'm going to call your attention, scribe in one of the DVD special commentaries. Look right here. What is that? What's the guy's name? He was also the model maker. I want to say his first name is Doug. I guess I can just Google it. The guy who did a lot of the work on the model shots in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Star Trek Close Encounters model shots. Let's just see if I can't come up with it. Was his name Doug? Gregory Gine, that's not the name I'm thinking of. This guy was actually interviewed. Star Trek motion picture. Let's just avoid the Close Encounters references. I don't know why this name is important to me. I'd probably come up with it if I was given enough time, and I probably should have prepped it better. But anyway, he talked about in the Star Trek DVD, what they did was, and I know for a fact this guy also did the special effects and like special effects shots for Star Trek, for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I think also E.T. If you know it, by the way, text it to me, 310-776-COONS. Okay. He talked about how, and I'm going to switch back to this image because I really think it's interesting. You know, when you're sort of doing, it's the first of the shots that everybody says is too boring in Star Trek, the motion picture. When you're flying up to the ship, Kirk and Scotty are in the travel pod, and the music that was written by Jerry Goldsmith was so, you know, just sort of soaring and really awesome and emotional. And that's, I mean, here's the idea. The stupid ass people who call it boring, other shots later in that movie are extremely boring. This shot, if you put yourself in the correct time and place mentally, you realize this is the first Star Trek movie after 15 or maybe 10 years. I guess it was 10 years, 69 to 79. There was a lot of buildup. There was a lot of hype. There was a lot of, will it be a TV show? Will it be a movie? It's going to be a TV movie. Is it going to be a big budget movie? Is it going to be a small budget movie? Finally, thank Christ, they settled on a big budget movie for Star Trek the Motion Picture. They spent $44 million on that movie. Yes, some of it disappointed the fans, some of the plot, some of the special effects that weren't finished. They went back and fixed it later. Those uniforms that seemed like pajamas, you know, a lot of stuff was not perfect with Star Trek the Motion Picture. One of the things that was perfect is that first shot approaching the Enterprise. It really captures the emotion of seeing the new Starship Enterprise, and we're going to go riding in it. And, you know, Captain Kirk is back, and we don't know Mr. Spock is back at that point in the movie, but, you know, it's just like, we're back. This is happening. Holy fucking shit, you know. And I've always said this. You know you're a real Trekkie if you are not bored by that scene, but instead have goosebumps or want to jack off. One of the two. Essentially goosebumps. If you get a tingle, if the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, that means you're a true Trekkie. If you're falling asleep bored by it, get the fuck out of my life, because you are not, you know, you're not interested in the way that a real Star Trek fan would be interested in. And I will say it till the day I die, and I believe it firmly. Like, people who are bored by that, there are scenes that you can be bored by later. Flying through the V'ger orifice and blah, 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 blah. That goes on for days, and it is boring. All those shots of Sulu, Ilea, Decker, yes, that's boring. I fully agree with that, and that's, you know, everybody was bored by that, including the Trekkiest Trekkies. But flying up to the Enterprise for the first time, seeing the ship in its dry dock with, not just seeing it, part of the thing about it was you see people in spacesuits and little ships are, I mean, it looked fucking real. It looked fucking real. Okay, I've gone on about this long enough. One of the things about it was, as you're flying through, you see kind of reflections and lens flares, not J.J. Abrams style lens flares, but you actually see kind of peaks of light and dings in here. And one of the things that they did with that was they needed a whole bunch of little lights. They took one big light and directed it into a bunch of dentist mirrors. Let me go back to the screen here, and you can see the dental mirrors in the zoomed in photo here. That's what this is here. A whole bunch of dental mirrors kind of clipped onto a big bar, and one light reflects into them and turns that one big light into 50. And then it reflects up on the Enterprise, and more importantly, it reflects up into the lens of the camera, the housing of the lens of the camera here, so that, you know, it doesn't necessarily, you don't see it poke straight into, you know, it doesn't reflect off of the mirror, but you see a glimmer of light, and it's just a glimmer for a split second, you know. And that's one of the things that made that shot so powerful and so meaningful and so goddamn awesome, was that, you know, you can see the big hexagon-shaped spotlights. You can see people in spacesuits floating around, and on and on and on. There's a million great things about that shot, but one of the things I've never really seen before outside of this picture is the dental mirrors that guy, I think his name was Doug, but it wasn't Drexler, talked about. Okay, back to the story. After a lifetime of service, the original prop for the Star Trek's Enterprise was purchased by an anonymous billionaire in 2006 and retired from the public eye. God, wouldn't you love to be that billionaire or know where that starship is now? Because, let's face it, all the enterprises there have been, the one from the original TV show, the one from the Next Generation, I guess the Enterprise E from the Next Generation movies is really the first one where they didn't primarily use models and photographing actual physical objects, but CGI. So I don't even know if there was a big Enterprise E model the way there was a big Enterprise A, or before, just the original Enterprise model from motion picture. But it's the best Enterprise of all the Enterprises. Every Trekkie I respect thinks that, and rightfully so, right? Because it was so much larger, it's so much more detailed, and so much more, frankly, realistic looking. Windows on the sides where there's like an apparent arboretum, and clouds painted on the ceiling, and photon torpedo launchers down on this part of it. And I mean, there's a million pieces of that Starship Enterprise that are, I mean, to use the terminology of my old buddy Rhino, they're tits. These are parts that's just, oh my God, it's tits. It's fantastic. It is so good and so realistic looking. Good news, this article goes on to say, is always over the event horizon. Ha ha ha. The prop team behind the original Enterprise is getting back together to raise funds to build a brand new ship, 50% larger than the original, but otherwise a perfect replica, and it's going to tour the world. This is going to be a big ship. Look at the scale of the original in these pictures. Well, we saw that. Let me zoom out a little bit. Maybe that guy's name will pop up in here. I don't know what that's a picture of right there. Oh, Richard Taylor, who designed the Enterprise, Jim Down, who built the ship, and Paul Olson, who painted it, were the first. The guy I'm thinking of is not any of those three guys. The guy I'm thinking of is actually the guy they brought in to photograph that. He talks in the DVD about wishing he had to commission a special periscope lens because they had to really get in between the wings to approximate the perspective of the travel pod that was Scotty and Kirk were in flying around. They were first brought together in 1978 by Paramount, and they're trying to raise $3 million to outfit an LA workspace and undertake a 16-month building project for a giant Starship Enterprise. It's the best one. And yes, you can donate via the website. Varying levels of donations being granted different rewards, like exclusive access to events starring the Enterprise. Here's the model before it was finished, because you can see U.S.S. Enterprise there, but the numbers are not there yet. There's the model makers. Who is that guy? Is that Paul Olson? Oh, that's one of the model makers himself. Okay, Starship Enterprise is arguably the most renowned and loved movie icon in the history of film. Oh, there's probably Star Wars people that will argue with that. There's probably, other people that would argue with that. She deserves to be reborn while we're still alive and kicking to do it. Richard Branson named his first rocket after the Enterprise. NASA named the first space shuttle that as well. I'm glad that they did all this photography. There's the impulse deflection crystal, if you know anything about the construction of the Enterprise. I believe that got blown up on either the Enterprise or the Reliant in Star Trek II. Part of the group's statement, once finished, the Starship will tour the world, taking in conventions and fan events wherever there's demand, and she will also be available for hire. Pretty badass. Pretty badass. How can you not love this? And how can you not love that ship? I mean, it really is the best of all of the ships. And, they might not have gotten the uniforms right. They might not have gotten the pacing right. They might not have been able to complete many of the special effects that had to be completed digitally 25 years later for the director's cut DVD, which they did a bang-up job on. But goddamn, if they didn't get the external part of that Starship Enterprise exactly right, to the point where true Trekkies get the little hairs on the back of their neck sticking up. And again, if you're falling asleep, the hell with you. All right. Let's end on a downer note. Why not? Well, it's not really a downer note, but it is an interesting note. Arizona State University, where I went to college. I started college. Technically, it's not where I graduated from, but that's a really long story that, trust me, you don't want to hear. At any rate, it allowed me to explore 2 universities worth of Alpha Drive frat boy sections. Let's just glom over that and forget I said that. What to do when an astronaut dies in space. An ASU student has done an ethical analysis, and I thought this was important or interesting enough on the ASU news page to bring to you. Questions like whether a body left in space can be used as compost, whether it's legal to let a corpse drift into the great beyond, are posed by this senior, Daniel Oberhaus, in the Honors College at ASU. In the April 7th piece, To Boldly Go Where No Body Has Gone Before, What to Do When an Astronaut Dies in Space. Oberhaus, who will graduate in May with degrees in English and philosophy, provides possible answers to such queries. Here's an example of why the college degree thing is not all it's cracked up to be. I got two, one psychology, one philosophy. And I look at that guy who's graduating with degrees in English and philosophy. One of mine is as good as his. The other is English instead of psychology. I argue psychology is probably a little bit more relevant and useful. But there's still a part of my brain that goes, I didn't get an English degree. I suck. And how stupid is that? I have 2 goddamn college degrees, and yet I still have this. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I've always had kind of the inferiority complex thing going. But all right, moving right along. He discovers that human body composting has been historically taboo on Earth and human bodies don't make such good fertilizer anyway. On a Martian settlement, earthling matter might contaminate the soil, and allowing a corpse to drift into space, much like a burial at sea, is defined as littering according to a UN charter. While Oberhaus admits these kind of what-if questions seem macabre, they are necessary and even practical as we're starting to look into manned long-term space missions. While we probably won't see boots on Mars for 15 to 20 years at least, those concerned with planning the early missions are already beginning to consider the host of unique methodological and ethical questions that such a journey will surely entail. Oberhaus investigates a Swedish-developed body storage system called BodyBack, was considered by NASA. He also examines the ethical issues inherent in prioritizing mission success over astronaut safety. Referencing classic sci-fi literature and movies, as well as citing advice from experts, Oberhaus makes a compelling case for assessing funereal options ahead of launch. The experience of losing a loved one and the grieving process that follows is not unique to space, all the more reason to give special attention to the impact death and dying has on space travel and the years leading up. I'm sorry, I bet that kid got a good grade. God, there's even contact info here. I wonder if I could get him on the phone. Wouldn't that be an interesting interview? I mean, because you think about it, right? It happened in 2001 when Gary Lockwood was just had to be let go and let tumble off into what the great beyond out there by Jupiter. I mean, you know, it happened in Star Trek: The Next Generation when they committed Ira Graves' body to space inside the giant sunglasses case that we all know is actually a photon tube, and so on. I don't know. I just feel like that's an interesting. Again, it's macabre. It's not an upper. It's a downer of among the worst sorts, but it's still fascinating and probably necessary to talk about if we're really going to talk about space. And no one wants to go to space more than me. My dad said a couple of days ago, he comes out, I saw him and he's all, NASA has confirmed structures on the other side of the moon. Like, what websites are you reading? And then he just kind of laughed. He's like, well, it was on the news. I'm like, I bet it was not on the news. I bet it was CNN is not reporting. If I go to nasa.gov, is it going to say structures on the moon? And what does confirmed even mean anyway? Like, we don't have any craft going to the moon. And then I did a search, and yeah, there's a couple of articles, medium to legitimate, medium to full legitimacy, where it's not structures on the moon, but there's sort of mysterious shapes that people have seen for a million years, thanks to that one spacecraft that actually crashed into the moon. I covered this on my show on the radio back in San Francisco, like 5 years ago or something. I forget the name of that lunar craft, but they seriously did like an orbit of the moon and then crashed into it to watch what would happen. And I remember the plume of what they expected was not nearly as big as they expected. And, it still didn't find, there's not a fucking Home Depot on the moon, but whatever. Feel free as always to contact me with the phone number you see on the screen. Feel free as always to tweet me at the Twitter address here on your screen. It's been a long week. Oh, you know what? Let's do a couple personal things really fast. I didn't want to talk about personal things, but I will since it's the end of the show and I feel like nobody ever makes it this far anyway. Nobody's watching. I got a couple of job hits this week. I'm a little bit down the road of becoming an educator for real. In fact, I'm a little more than a little bit down that road. Like the process is underway. I've been fingerprinted, and I'm going to be working on my master's degree and so on. I'm not going to say where the jobs are. It's not important. One of them's a really good job in a major city, bigger than I've ever worked before, with a major network. The other one is not. The other one is actually in a medium market, large medium, but not large market. And the person who emailed me, I mean, I sent them my stuff. Get this, okay, 6 months of sending your resume. It's actually been longer than that. It's been like a year. I've been sending my resume, cover letters, tailored resumes to each place. Like I redo my resume for every job, for every application I send. I redo my cover letter for every job that I apply to. I write specific things. I tailor the examples of my work. There's many examples of Sebastian Kunz's journalism on YouTube and SoundCloud and all these other places. And I'm proud of most of it. But when it's like for instance, I did technology editor at the Associated Press. Never heard back from it, but I do my more technological news stories when I apply to be technology editor at this place. One of them was kind of a green energy type news operation, or not a news operation, but like a green energy editor for a legitimate news operation. And I sort of went back to my sustainable, we had a radio station called Green 960 in San Francisco, and I was kind of the lead news anchor back at that time. So I did a whole lot of sort of sustainable, renewable energy news stories of all types. I tailor it. But again, now I'm down this road a little bit toward being an educator. I was kind of figuring I was going to have to kiss journalism goodbye. What do I do? Like, I mean, now that I suddenly, and it happened in the same day, I get an email scheduling me for an interview with the big one, and then I get an email from the other one, slightly smaller. They say, listen, straight up, we're going to tell you it's in this medium market, and it's not more than X amount of money, which is not a lot of money, but it's, it's not San Francisco, and it's slightly less, only slightly less than I was making in San Francisco. So the truth is, I could probably live on it. It's not like I have kids and a big family. I'm just me. If I could find a small apartment close to the place, then maybe. So in short, I'm calling that person tomorrow, the person who said, look, here's how much it is. But that was the thing. In one day, I got 2 emails, one just scheduling me 2 weeks from now for the recruiter to call me and interview me over the phone in a major news organization in a major city. And then later that afternoon, I applied and got an immediate response going, your resume is great. You have a good sound. Here's how much the job pays. Are you still interested? And I emailed him back. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've got some questions. Here's my questions. Is it possible to live on this salary in the town you're describing? Is the radio station near affordable, affordable housing? Like that sounds kind of ghetto, but I mean, is there a way to rent a studio apartment close to transit where I could, take a train in or something like that, like I'm used to? I'm going to have to explore it. I'm supposed to call him tomorrow. I don't know if it's a he or she. It's one of those names. It could be either way. And again, this person is not in the medium market where I will be living. The person's actually in the big city. I think he's in New York. But it's like, all right. I'm not that worried about it. I'm just going to call him and see what he says. I have no question about my abilities. I'm definitely able to do the news any way they want. I'm definitely not going to be told, here's a couple of things I'm not going to do. Never once are you going to hear me interrupt programming to say Justin Bieber's in jail. Never once are you going to hear me report on what Taylor Swift had for breakfast. What people want to hear about, what people are interested in, what's trending on Twitter is, so help me Christ, something you will never hear me do on the fucking news, because that's not the fucking news. What's news is what's important to people. And, if they want a sports guy, they damn well better hire a sports guy, because I ain't doing that either. I just wanted to kind of fill out the last 5 minutes so that it makes an even hour. And I did sort of want to get that off my chest a little bit. What do I do? Give me advice at Twitter. Give me advice on the phone number here. Have a great weekend. Do join me Saturday at roughly the same time for the Fast Food Junk Food podcast. It'll be me and Sarah. McDonald's is closing hundreds of stores in the next year. I did not know that. Also, we'll look a little bit more at 420 Foods. We'll look at... she sent me a couple of really good articles, actually, that we need to look into. And I saw an article today, the taco cannon. You want to see the fucking taco cannon in, how like they have a t-shirt cannon at NHL games and stuff. They'll shoot a t-shirt up into the crowd. They can shoot a cannon I'm sorry, they can shoot a taco up into the crowd at a major sporting event, and they're doing it, and it's in operation. We will look at that Saturday, 10 o'clock on the west coast of the U.S. That's 0500 GMT. For now, make it a great Friday, and we'll see you Saturday night on cBas After Dark.